We heard a news story yesterday, and I brought it to you here on the program, that these Democrats who fled Texas, absconded from their duty, are now planning on coming back. They might make the special session end and then come back when a new special session is started. I'm saying too little, too late. I think they should be punished big time. That fine needs to be collected, and some of them should be just kicked out of office for shirking their duties. To that end, let's get with the Attorney General of the great state of Texas, our friend Ken Paxton. Ken, how are you? Good to see you.
I'm doing good. It's been an interesting couple of weeks, hasn't it?
It has, but Ken, if we look back and look at 2021, when these people came back, I don't think there was any punishment. They just did what they wanted to do. They left on a jet plane, said goodbye, ate some caviar wherever they were hiding out, then came back. We need to make this at least painful financially, painful legislatively, shouldn't we? We can't just let them come back and not have any punishment.
Yeah, in 2021, the only punishment was for me. They came after me instead of them. So
Right.
hopefully, I mean, I'd love to see some accountability here, but that is up to the Speaker of the House. Now, we're still moving forward with our option of taking out some of these legislators from office for failing to show up for their job. And they explicitly said they were bailing on their jobs, and they said it publicly. So, that's going to be a decision for the Texas Supreme Court in a couple of weeks after the briefing's over by both sides. And hopefully we'll get some of them removed.
Well, there seemed to be some confusion about that. I know the governor was talking about possibly removing them. Then you stepped up, and I think rightfully said, "No, I'm the top lawyer here. I'm going to be the one that can go after them." So, did you sue, or did you bring some sort of a request to a judge to say, "Can we remove them if they don't come back?" How does that mechanism work, Ken?
It's unusual. It's never been done. We came up with this idea in 2021. We threw it out there as a possibility. It wasn't used in 2021. So the governor filed one going after Gene Wu. We filed one going after 13. And the idea is the Supreme Court, it's an original action in the Supreme Court called quo warranto. And it's a district attorney, county attorney, or the attorney general can file these things, asking the Supreme Court to remove these 13 legislators who we have absolute proof because they put it out on social media what they were doing and why they were doing it. They can be removed from office if the Supreme Court so deems it's necessary.
Isn't it necessary when you leave for 2 or 3 weeks? I'm not sure I understand how it works. If I leave for 2 or 3 weeks, I'm going to be out of a job. If you do that, you'll be out of a job. Why do they get all this leeway? They literally left when session was in.
Look, we're not giving them leeway. But ultimately, it's not my decision. I can bring the action, and I can ask for a certain consequence, which we did pretty quickly, and we based it on the speaker's time. And we gave the speaker, he wanted till Friday to get them back, give them the opportunity to hear his plea. They didn't come back, and so we filed it immediately. So now they have an opportunity to send in their reply brief, then we get to respond, and they get one more chance to respond. That takes about 2 weeks. And then it really is, I mean, I'd love to see him punished. I'd love to see him taken out of office, but I don't make the decision. I can only ask for it.
If the judge agrees with you, and I hope that it did, and by the way, I'm not saying that you're giving them leeway. I think that just the way it works gives them leeway, which is weird. Anybody else who's doing any other job would be gone. But if the judge agrees with you, what happens? They get removed, and you have what, special elections? What do you do?
Yeah, there's 9 judges in the Texas Supreme Court, so you have to get a majority of the courts, not just one judge. Yeah, so there'll be special elections, but there's also questions that we're researching now, trying to figure it out because it never happened before. Whether quorum is affected. In other words, do we still need 100 votes if there are 13 missing legislators, like they don't exist? So
Right.
That's a question we're trying to figure out. So it could be we could
Oh.
vote. If it turns out that quorum is affected, the quorum numbers might be able to allow us to go ahead and vote with the ones that are there.
See, this is why you're so smart. It's why you have this job. I didn't even think about that. Mathematically speaking, quorum right now is 100 because there are 150 people in the House of Representatives. So if you don't have 100, you don't have 2/3. If the original number is not 150, it's really 137 or something like that. The quorum number is a lower level, which would be in the 90s, and you actually would have quorum. That actually makes a lot of sense. So if you get the okay by the Supreme Court of Texas, I'm just trying to follow what you're saying here. Then if the Supreme Court says, yes, remove the 13, then the actual number would be 137, and 2/3 of 137 is decidedly less than 100. In fact, you would have quorum now, right?
Well, that's what we're hoping. We're still looking at this. There's not a lot of law on this. There's not a lot of precedent, so we're trying to figure it out. But it does make sense, right? If there are literally no existing representatives, how can there be a quorum based on non-existent representatives that have not even
Right.
been elected yet? It'd probably be a case of first impression. So we might end up in litigation over that, of course, but it would be, I think, a reasonable argument to say, hey, they shouldn't be counted because there's no one here. There's no possibility of counting someone right now.
Makes a lot of sense to me. It's Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of the great state of Texas. We appreciate you stopping by, kenpaxton.com. So as we're watching this unfold, what about the money? When you say there's a $500 fee, and this all goes into Robert Francis O'Rourke, calls himself Beto, all goes into that guy and George Soros, who might have been funding these people. But let's start with the actual fine. Is that going to be collected? Has that been collected?
So there's two parts of the money. One is this fine that the speaker has imposed. That is completely on him to collect. And in the past, I think last time they didn't end up paying the fine.
Right.
I would encourage the speaker, make him pay the fine. I mean, it adds up. $500 a day does add up. And so I would definitely make him pay the fine. Now, the other thing we try to do is cut off the funding for this because, as your friend Robert O'Rourke was out advertising that for political contributions, we think his nonprofit was misleading the public because they weren't political contributions. They were personal contributions for expenses on their trip, whether it was, lodging or transportation or food, whatever. And we actually got a temporary restraining order because we want more information to make sure that we have the opportunity to present our full case. And we got it. We got a restraining order, and Robert O'Rourke violated that clearly what the judge ordered, violated, continued to fundraise. So we are now trying to hold him in contempt, both with fines and potentially jail time for violating a court order. But the goal there was to stop the funding, the illegal funding for these Democrats who shouldn't have been out of state anyway.
Well, this is important, Ken. You can never call him my friend again. That's the first thing. Second thing, Robert Francis O'Rourke. Robert Francis O'Rourke is a fourth-generation Irish American. Nothing wrong with that, but he pretends he's Hispanic. And I think many people watching and listening think that his mother is Hispanic. She's not. He's a white guy. Nothing wrong with that, but don't pretend you're Beto. Now, you went after him possibly for felony bribery. And let me explain what I thought was going on, and I wonder if that's what you were reaching for as well, or did I jump the shark here? If he's funding and financing the $500 a day, or if he's funding and financing the plane trips out, if he's funding and financing the hotel stays for these people that are shirking their duties, that would mean they're accepting bribery money. If I'm right about this, maybe I'm wrong. They're accepting bribery money to do something politically for somebody who's paying them. Is that where you were going with that?
So it is where I'm going with it, but you'll remember one of my biggest complaints about Texas is I don't have the authority to prosecute crime. So the local DA here in Travis County, who would never prosecute that crime, or the local DA in San Antonio, who would never prosecute that crime because they're Soros funded, I can't do anything about that. And that's the unfortunate rules that the legislature has set up. I wish they would give concurrent jurisdiction so that I actually could do something about the bribery issue and go look at it and determine whether they deserve to be prosecuted for bribery. But that is probably never going to happen because most of these Democrats have Democratic DAs, and the legislature has never corrected this massive problem that we have with Soros-funded DAs controlling prosecutions.
Well, I mean, can't Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Patrick make that part of the next session? Let me explain that to those who are watching and listening, because I understand what you're laying down. If something goes on in a county where there is a DA that is a blue Soros elected DA, Pam Bondi, if she can find some federal charges involved, can come in and prosecute. You can't do that as the Attorney General of Texas?
No. As a matter of fact, and if you look at the population, I mean, 65, 70% of the population is controlled by Soros-funded DAs.
At
so
least.
No, they could literally say, we are going to let bribes occur. We want them to occur. This could be the DA, and I'm not prosecuting it. As a matter of fact, I'm going to allow all kinds of crimes. I'm not going to punish shoplifters. I'm not going to punish, all kinds of crimes. And as a matter of fact, I'm involved in committing crimes myself. And by the way, no one can go after me. That is Texas law right now as it stands. Wow. We can't do anything to stop crime if a Soros-funded DA doesn't want to stop it.
And what did you call it? Concurrent prosecution? So if they decide not to prosecute any other, like our friend Andrew Bailey in Missouri, he can go in and prosecute crime if he wants. You can't?
That's correct. Many states have a backup plan, and it holds DAs accountable, because then if they don't do their jobs or they are committing crimes, there's accountability there. In our state, no accountability. Republican state, absolutely controlled by Soros-funded DAs. And so far, the legislature, they could pass something. I've tried to get them to pass concurrent jurisdiction, like for other things, and we've gotten it. We have it for voter fraud.
Yeah.
We've fought fighting to get back that the Court of Criminal Appeals struck down, but we don't have the ability to correct the problems with the Soros-funded DAs. And look, I'm leaving this office. The legislature still needs to fix this. This is a big problem in Texas.
It is Ken Paxton, the Texas Attorney General. One last thing about Andrew Bailey. You know, because I think you guys probably talked about it, but he fired the St. Louis DA because she refused to prosecute any crime. She had a stack and stacks of criminal referrals on her desk, prosecution that would have been easy, guilty verdicts that she decided, I'm not going to do it. He fired her. So you literally don't have the ability to fire the Travis County DA if he doesn't do something.
No, the Travis County DA, I have no ability. The Travis DA could get up and say, I am going to commit a bunch of crimes, and I'm going to have all my friends commit crimes. And it could be, you pick the crime, any crime that he wants, and they could go out and do it. They could come into your house in San Antonio, steal your stuff, and say, the DA has authorized this, and guess what? You would have no recourse.
Wow. That makes no sense. Ken, that's
law.
sick. Well, it doesn't make any sense, and the legislature needs to step up. Let me ask you one last question about the legislature. When it comes to this legislature, it is completely backward. They're doing things that Democrats would never do if they were in charge. The Republicans are letting chairmanships go to some Democrats. They're looking at Democrats as a voting bloc in the House of Representatives instead of saying, shut up in the corner because we've got the control. They are allowing them to have power that, again, the Democrats would never allow Republicans to have. Will they wake up and learn a lesson here, do you think, Ken? Because these people got up and held this entire special session up, didn't do their jobs, they absconded and left their districts without any representation. Will the Republicans realize the power we gave them and dig in and stop being, mealy-mouthed like this?
We've gone 17 straight years with the Democratic bloc controlling the House, who is the speaker, the Republican speaker. So for the last 17, 18 years, the Democrats pick who they want, and that Republican becomes speaker. I don't know. I thought we had it this time, and I'm not in opposition to Dustin Burrows, but we had a Republican caucus that picked somebody else, and he left with his votes and got the Democrats to vote for him, and that's where we're at. That's our system right now.
It would be like the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, needing a bunch of Democrats to vote for him to get the job. It's not supposed to work that way. We are literally giving Republicans the control because we want them to be in control, and then they're ceding it. And it seems to be a revolving. This is not new. Ever since I've lived in Texas, it's been this way, and it's very strange. I hope that they'll wake up. I really do hope this is a wake-up call. I hope they'll heed your words.
No, they're ceding it because individual Republicans benefit because they get more power individually. Now, the overall body of Republicans lose power greatly, right? And the Democrats massively benefit. That's why they do it. But, the 15 to 20 Republicans that are willing to trade, they end up in premier positions in the House, premier committees, premier assignments, premier fundraising, and the rest of the Republicans are less well off. And the state is not represented by a Republican House anymore. It has been impacted greatly by Democrats.
The redistricting passed in the Senate yesterday. It's going to pass in the House once they come back, and it'll probably be the next session. So that hopefully will get done. And nobody's talking about this except you and maybe Greg Abbott and me, that 4 of the 5 new districts will be Hispanic-dominated districts. They're acting like this is somehow getting rid of brown people or black people, which doesn't make any sense. This is... Ken, we've literally seen this in Illinois, California, New York, Massachusetts. Massachusetts has 35% Republican voters, 0 Republican representation. California, 40% Republican voters, 17% Republican representation. And you've got one district in Illinois that I think you've seen that looks like an anaconda. It just goes around like 18 different districts to make one big, long Democrat district. So this is nothing new. So what's happening now in Texas is not something new. And by the way, we're not doing it like they did it. This is legitimately because you can't have a coalition district anymore. And by law, they have to do this. We have to do this in Texas. It just ends up benefiting the Republicans. So how does this thing end, do you think?
Look, you're right about this. I mean, the Democrats know. They went to states where everything's gerrymandered, right? And they claim that we are gerrymandering. If this was truly about gerrymandering, and they believed that, then they would complain about Illinois, Massachusetts, and every other Democratic state, which is most of them, that have super gerrymandered, right?
Yes.
The states it's not. It's such a lie and such hypocrisy for them to say that's their issue. So you know how this is going to end? We're going to get redistricting done. This is what happened in 2003 when I was in the House. It happened in 2021 because the Democrats eventually have to come home. They grandstand, they raise money, they have a good time during the summer, they get away from some of the summer heat, and then when it comes time for school, time for their job, they come back and we get it done.
I think you're absolutely right. It's KenPaxton.com. It's the Attorney General of the great state of Texas, Ken Paxton. I'm glad that you're looking out for our food supply. Let's make a hard shift. We're heard in Battle Creek, Michigan every night. That's where Kellogg's is based. You got them to agree to get rid of the toxic dyes. Is this in conjunction with HHS and Bobby Kennedy, or is this something you did on your own?
No, this is something my office, this is something we did on our own. I've been pushing all of the food manufacturers. Kellogg's, to their credit, was the first one to sign a voluntary legal agreement. Others have made pledges, but those don't mean much to me if they're not in writing and there's not some consequence for not doing it. But give Kellogg some credit. They came to the table, they negotiated with us, and they're going to stop in 2027. Obviously, it takes time to change your manufacturing processes. We've given them that time, and we want that from lots of manufacturers.
Well, let me ask you this. Is it true that they were putting the food dyes in just to make it look more edible? I mean, you grew up eating cereal. I mean, they weren't putting all this artificial stuff in them then, and we thought that they were fine. Is this just to make it more attractive to sell more product? Why do they do it? Because the stuff they're making in Battle Creek for Canada doesn't have all this stuff in it.
Well, look, I hope it's because of that. I don't think they would make it their number one thing to poison kids, but that's what's
Agreed.
happening. So
Yeah.
they make it look more edible, more enticing to kids. The downside is there's a health cost to it.
Did Eli Lilly really allegedly bribe a bunch of doctors and medical facilities to push their stuff? Is that what you're alleging in this lawsuit?
Yeah, we're pretty sure they did. That's why we filed the lawsuit, and we think we can prove that. So obviously that's not good practice. That's not following Texas law, and we're going to hold them accountable for doing just what we say they're doing.
Well, Ken, I mean, what does this mean to the person who's listening and watching who goes to the doctor? Does that mean that the doctor had an extra incentive to push one medication even though something else might have worked?
That's correct. So we financial incentives, bribery behind the scenes, providing nurses to help administer this stuff, which saves the doctor's cost, providing resources for administrative work. All of that is incentivizing the doctors to go one way as opposed to another drug, and that doctor shouldn't be incentivized one way or the other. It should give you the best treatment possible.
It is the Attorney General of the great state of Texas, Ken Paxton. Ken, I appreciate the time and the access. One last question, and it's about voter fraud. Those on the left want us to believe there is no such thing as voter fraud when their person wins. Russia colluded if the person on the other side wins. That's just their game. But we were basically told you can't complain about any possible voter fraud because there's no widespread voter fraud. You literally have been bringing cases. Was it over 900 cases that you brought, and for some reason a judge said you can't continue looking into voter fraud? What's going on with that?
Yeah, so we had almost 1,000 cases. We had prosecuted many successfully, so there is voter fraud. We know it. Then the Court of Criminal Appeals, almost 4 years ago, struck down a statute from 1951 where we had thousands of cases of precedent upholding our ability to prosecute voter fraud that was given to the Attorney General by the legislature after the LBJ scandals. And we were prosecuting. I had one person prosecuting voter fraud when I got here. We moved it up to 4 because we had so much voter fraud. And if the legislature would have given me more, I would have had more voter fraud. But it's a reality. It is happening. And we've had to unelect the Court of Criminal Appeals members. And I think we've got a good bill going through session this time to reauthorize me to prosecute voter fraud and we need to elect a few more new judges this next primary. And we should be able to get a majority so we can fix what that Court of Criminal Appeals did 4 years ago to strike down 8-1, a statute that had been on the books for 72 years.
Ken, is there one way to solve this? I mean, I think the simplistic way is one paper ballot per person. You run it through a machine, or you put it in a box. You have people from both sides actually, observe what's going on. We've turned everything over to electronic and digital, and I don't know how you can trust that. Now, I'm not calling out any specific company, but if you've got access to the internet, or you have got access to put thumb drives in a machine, there can be hijinks. Can't we go back to where if I want to vote for somebody, I put a check mark by your name, or I fill it in somehow, and then put it in a box, or have it go through a machine that both sides can examine to make sure it's okay? Why have we made it this complicated so that people who are fraudsters can get away with it?
Look, I think we made it this complicated because it seemed easier with, digital. It's faster, it's more efficient. However, I think it is more subject to intervention from outside sources. Obviously, back in the LBJ days, they cheated too. So you can still cheat, but it's a lot easier if you can just manipulate through, technology, manipulate the vote. So if I were in the legislature, I would propose going back to something that's safer. This is not safe. Everybody knows it's not safe. Everybody knows things can be hacked, and so it needs to be changed so that we have elections that we can count on as being accurate.
It is Attorney General Ken Paxton. We always appreciate the time and the access. KenPaxton.com. Go there. He's running for Senate next year, but that's not why we got together today. Ken, we'll have you on again soon to talk about exactly what the state of Texas needs and why you're taking on somebody who's an incumbent. And we certainly want you to come back on and let everybody watching and listening know exactly what a difference you would bring to that. Can we do that?
That'd be awesome. Love it.
I appreciate you, brother. That is Ken Paxton. We're back after this on the Joe Pags Show. Stay here.